All right, so I got a viewer in here. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. I just realized that my microphone was cut off, so because of that, I need to restart, which is fine. I'm gonna open up this curtain so we can have a little bit more light coming in when we come on. And I'm reorganizing my house and stuff like that, so it's taking a minute, but we're getting to it. We're getting through it. So we went over chapter 19 last time about divorce and marriage and children and the rich man and the rich ruler. So before we start, I just want to give a prayer out. Might as well do that. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for your love, your mercy, your kindness, and your goodness. We thank you for loving us as we are as individuals. And I also thank you for cutting us back as individuals sometimes. Sometimes the flesh gets a hold of us, and sometimes we can ask you to help us cut that back. And you'll cut it back, and we'll understand what's going on because it's you wanting us to grow and abide in Christ and become more fruitful by the Spirit of Christ. And I just want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for all the trials and the tribulations of the self and the internal struggle that all of us have, and ask you to continue to be with each and every person that I've ever met in my life, and help those who may view this, and help them that understand that we have an open and a relational communication um, relationship that we can freely have, and seeking in faith for you, you will reward those who seek you diligently. And that reward, I believe, is more of the Spirit, to live by the Spirit of Christ rather than the flesh, which always fails, but the Spirit of Christ always prevails. So, with that, I just want to thank you and pray in Jesus or Yeshua's name. Amen. So, with that, we're going to start. So, we're going to start off in chapter 20. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early one morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay the normal wage and sent them out to work. At 9 o'clock in the morning, he was passing through the marketplace and saw some people standing around doing nothing. So he hired them, telling them he would pay them whatever was right at the end of the day. So they went out to work in the vineyard. At noon, and again at 3 o'clock, he did the same thing. At 5 o'clock that afternoon, he was in town again and saw some more people standing around. He asked them, "Why haven't you been working today?" They replied, "Because no one hired us." The landowner told them, "Then go out and join others in my vineyard." That evening, he told the foreman to call the workers in and pay them, beginning with the last workers first. With those hired at 5 o'clock, or when those hired at 5 o'clock were paid, each received a full day's wage. When those hired first came to get their pay, they assumed they would receive more. And this is a continuation concerning who's the least and who's the greatest, or who's important, kind of thing. It turns out to be, I think this is speaking a parable of going out to the surrounding nations, and they would be included whenever Jesus would um, he would give up his life, he would die, he would be buried, and rose him again, and then that would be when everyone would be able to be able to come and draw near him if they so chose to do so. So the ones that were hired first assumed, right, that they were going to receive more. But they too were paid a day's wage. When they received their pay, they protested to the owner. "The people worked only 1 hour, and yet you've paid them just as much as you paid us, who worked all day in the scorching heat." He answered one of them, "Friend, I haven't been unfair. Didn't you agree to work all day for the usual wage? Take your money and go. I wanted to pay this last worker the same as you. Is it against the law for me to do what I want with my money? Should you be jealous because I am kind to others?" So those who were last will be first then, and those who were first will be last. So yeah, so that's me thinking that, it pertains to him and his like narrative of getting everyone in around to be able to become part of God's family if they so chose to, not just the people who were chosen first, which goes back to Abraham. He was chosen, and then he had a lineage, and then Israel or Jacob was in Egypt, and they had their tribes and they had their section of land, and then all of the whole other history that goes along with all of those things. I believe that's what he's talking about. It could be wrong though. Don't ever believe me. Always think for yourself. Jesus again predicts his death. As Jesus was going up to Jerusalem, he took the 12 disciples aside privately and told them what was going to happen to them. Listen, he said, we're going up to Jerusalem, where the Son of Man will be betrayed to the leading priests and teachers of the religious law. They will sentence him to die. Then they will hand him over to the Romans to be mocked, flogged with a whip, and crucified. But on the third day he will be raised from the dead. Then the mother of James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus with their sons. She knelt respectfully to ask a favor. What is your request? He asked. She replied, in your kingdom, please let my two sons sit in the place of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. But Jesus answered by saying to them, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink? Bitter cup of suffering. Oh, yes, they replied, we are able. Jesus told them, we will indeed drink. You will indeed drink from my bitter cup, but I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. My Father has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen. When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. So they were, I don't even know what that word means. Let's look it up. What does indignant mean? Let's see if it pulls it up. Something that insults, humiliates, or harms a person's dignity or self-respect. Okay, so they're indignant. So they're like, they're indignant. So indignant means an act that offends your dignity, humiliating treatment, a loss of respect, being laughed at in public, being forced to do something embarrassing, being treated as less important or worthy. They were indignant whenever they heard this because I guess jealousy. All of us have jealousy within us. We have jealousy, greed, lust. We have all those things within us. And this is being shown now. But Jesus called them all together and said, or called them together, James and John, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and the officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, I don't think it means like a slave in like a bad term or way, but I don't know. Let's look what slave looks like in the Greek. Slave, what does slave mean in the Greek terminology? A person who belongs to another, who has no ownership rights of their own. A literal slave, someone under an absolute authority. It's kind of like a military perspective, I guess. But listen to what he's saying. He said, whoever wants to be your leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, I don't really know how to take it personally, but I know that, people do work and they would get paid. Like the owners would pay them. That's, things like that. They would be given shelter, food, water, and, things of that nature. But slave is a very hard term there. But for even the Son of Man came. I like how it says, Jesus himself is speaking. He's speaking from his God's own heart. He's saying, for even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. How you take that? Up to you. As Jesus and the disciples left the town of Jericho, a large crowd followed behind him. Two blind men were sitting beside the road. When they heard that Jesus was coming that way, they began shouting, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us!" "Be quiet," the crowd yelled at them. But they only shouted louder, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us!" When Jesus heard them, he stopped and called, "What do you want me to do for you?" "Lord," they said, "we want to see." Jesus felt sorry for them and touched their eyes. Instantly they could see, and then they followed him. This reminds me of the lady who had the 12-year problem. Look at that cat. Anyway, she had the 12-year like blood problem or internal struggling problem, that no doctor, no physician, no one could heal. But then she heard about this man named Jesus, and on her mind she was hearing around town that this Jesus character was coming, and she was like, he's healed many people, so I'm gonna go seek him. So she went out and she sought him, and then she touched the hem of his garment, and she was healed. Um, you know, so that's the same thing for people that are blind. They might be blind to their own reputation. They might be blind to their own identity, or they might be blind to just religious manipulation just in general. There are people out there that believe that other people are demons, and that's why they act like they do. But hey, what can I say? You have to choose how you're going to believe and think, and all your internal soul, your mind, will, and emotions all belong to you. They don't belong to nobody else. Those belong to you. They're very personal, and they should be treated as such. And you should be mindful of how you take care of your mind and your heart. And you are responsible for your willing decisions of whatever you choose to do. So these people sought out Jesus, and you can see that he had compassion for them. He felt sorry that they were having this trouble, and they were healed. They were healed from their, like, it's the same thing with the internal struggle for 12 years. That 12 years of abuse, that 12 years of, I don't know, you were neglected, you were abused. They were finally healed. So that's the main takeaway there. So with that is chapter 20. We talked about the vineyard, and we talked about the indignancy of someone asking Jesus, "Hey, can my sons sit right next to you whenever you come in your kingdom?" Because they're thinking that this is going to be a physical kingdom, and that he's going to rule over everything, and everything's going to be cool and grandiose. However, they were very mistaken, because they relied on the physicality of everything rather than the spiritual. And because of that, that's why the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees and the scribes are going to go and betray and kill Jesus. They don't want him there. They do not desire him to be there. Some want him to be a king, but also, and it's amazing that the Pharisees, I believe, knew that this was the Messiah, and they decided to kill him and put him to death by the use of the Romans whenever they got him to Pontius Pilate. But anyway, that's Matthew chapter 20. Thank you so much for viewing. You have a good day. Bye bye.